It happens to everybody at work. It happens at home. It happens in life. Is all stress good? No. Is all stress bad? No. Sometimes stress can actually be a motivator because of the fact you forgot to do something and it's got to be done and it's got to be done now. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe I forgot about that. So you have all those different aspects of it. Workplace stress is physical and emotional response that occurs on the job and demands you to focus to cope with just getting that thing done. High workload, tight deadlines, lack of control, poor work-life balance. What is work-life balance? Okay, that's right. Okay, you got your outside life interfering with your work life, and also vice versa. We're too connected sometimes to work with our cell phones and everything else and wanting demands on the weekends and so on. But you know what? That is part of the work of a manager. Your job is to make certain your area functions, whatever that takes. And sometimes it does interfere with your personal life, and that's just part of the turf. So make certain that you understand that, but also make certain that when you carry your work home or you carry your personal life into work, sometimes I'm not certain people should complain about that either. So it depends upon your work situation, but no matter what happens, in management, the whole world can be full of roses and a wonderful thing on Friday. And then Monday morning, the entire world has burned down and it's in crisis. And it's all your fault because you decided to slack off on Friday afternoon and actually relax and enjoy work for a minute. No. Because things happen that sometimes are out of your control because of the fact that this happened over here and that caused this to happen. And all of a sudden, somehow that affected your department and at your default because of this person didn't do. Yes, that's how it works. And it's a scramble sometimes. Stress can enhance and reduce performance. Yerkes-Dodson Law suggests performance improves with increased stress or arousal, but only up to a certain point. In other words, stress isn't all bad. Sometimes you have that stress and you do really well. Sometimes I like to sit down and have, when I do a presentation, especially a major presentation, I sit down and I will be out there 2 weeks, have the thing processing in my head and everything else. And then 48 hours before the big presentation, that's when I sit down there and I take all that thinking of 2 weeks and I put it into the PowerPoint slides. I sit down and I put my notes together. This because of the fact that I do better thinking, processing over here, getting all my thoughts together, and boom, in that one moment when I have that stress, a must-do thing, I tend to perform extraordinarily well in those moments. So the stress isn't always bad, but too much of it can destroy your physical health and your mental health. It can turn you into an eating fanatic because if you're a stress eater, oh my gosh, you just eat nonstop because this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. Or you may be a stress non-eater and you get thinner by the moment. So it just depends in the process as to how you cope with stress. Don't think it's all bad because sometimes it being underneath the gun, so to speak, in the aspect of making certain you have to get this done and completed, sometimes it's a good thing. Low stress. Too little, you get bored and you just kind of roll your eyes and everything else. And it's a nice, lazy afternoon. You just 5 hours into the workday, it's 1:30, you just came back from lunch, you're lethargic and everything else, and then all of a sudden, boom, the world explodes, and you're high stress all of a sudden. From low stress to mass stress is really tough. The moderate stress, a lot of times, that bit of stress of having a deadline over here. Okay, I got this coming up in 2 days. I got to get this over here. Thank you for that email that reminded me. Okay, so you got the motivation and performance. The moderate stress actually keeps you on your toes and actually helps you much better. When somebody goes in for a job interview, just so you know, my recommendation is a couple of them. Number one, do not be too relaxed. Do not sit on the entire seat of the chair. Sit on the front third of the chair. Make certain you don't want to have your back into the back because you don't want to be comfortable. Don't cross your hands. Don't cross your feet. Don't cross your knees. Sit down there and be on the edge of your seat waiting for questions to come to you and everything else because you have to be in peak performance when you're talking in a job interview. You have to be attentive. You cannot relax for a second. You need to be in a state of stress during that because of the fact that in that moment is not a time to be relaxed. It is a time for you to totally focus at that moment and leave everything else on the outside. The stress is a good thing in that moment. Having day after day after day after day of that stress, it really will have a problem on your mental health and your physical health, and you need to pay attention to that. If you don't do things to sit down and relieve that, such as work out, have a fabulous diet, you will sit down there and accumulate a whole series of issues, health-wise, mental-wise, in the workplace. So it depends where you're at. The negative impacts decrease productivity, increase errors and absenteeism. Burnout issues, mental health issues, high turnover rates. Sometimes you sit there and have conflicts on your team. Poor communication, reduced collaboration because you're at each other's throat because you're constantly in a state of high stress. A whole team like this can really be frustrating to work with. You get low morale. You don't want to come into work. Oh my gosh, I have to go into work again. I got to see those people. I'm so sick of them in the process. It's not uncommon. Make certain that you have moments. Make certain, if you are a leader, if you have a high stress environment, that you take time out, totally away, and celebrate. Whether it's a birthday or an organization goal as a team, think about opportunities. Look for times to break the ice, sit down there and have an enjoyable moment. Just go out, buy somebody their favorite beverage to drink and plop it on their desk and just walk on by and everything else. Startle them with kindness just because. Do things to relieve that stress, because if you don't do it, it'll build up and build up and build up. Make certain you pay attention to the needs of everybody if you're going to be doing that. I think it's a good idea. I've done it my entire life, and it's incredible how just one thing, people sometimes will never remember the work, but they'll always remember how they were treated. So make certain that when they think about how you as a leader, as their manager, treated them, make certain they have positive thoughts about how you treated them. You gave them opportunity to advance, opportunity to be listened to. All that is part of relieving the aspect of stretch. Promote that healthy work-life balance. I hear your kids playing soccer and they're on the all-star team. Yeah. Is the game this afternoon? Yeah. Get out of here. You know what? Those things, as a leader, they go a long way when you're considering that, because you may have to call them in on a Saturday morning for a crisis at work. Okay, if they had a chance to go spend time with their family, that means an awful lot to a lot of different people. Provide support and resources. How come you have your keyboard like that? You have your keyboard up over here. That's going to hurt your wrist. Well, yeah, I get a little bit over here. I think it might have some carpal tunnel. Okay, let's do this. Let's have an ergonomist come in and take a look and improve your workstation. In the meantime, I want you to go here and get your wrist examined. If it's an issue about that, it's a workers' comp issue, we want to make certain that you're healthy in your job. Now, by the way, I did that. One year, I brought in 19 different cases of people that had different types of physical maladies that they attributed to work. I brought them all in, brought an ergonomist. We went in and we had people going through, and part of the work stress was they had poorly designed workstations. One gal, in that space underneath her desk, she had to turn sideways because she had stored boxes in her, and she was literally typing with her body facing this way and her face and hands typing this way. No wonder she had all kinds of problems. We just moved the boxes and her life was much better. We changed things. You want to make certain that you're paying attention to the work environment that you have to reduce stress physically and mentally for anything that you have. Encourage breaks, set realistic goals, take them out to lunch, whatever that may be. How does that work? So you want to make certain that stress, especially when you see it's causing conflicts and distraction at work, pay attention to the outward signs, because your job is to watch the people, okay, that you have. Look for psychological signs and behavioral signs. Somebody does a great job every single day that they come in and something goes awry. And it could be that the kids missed the bus. It could be that this happened. It could be that their mother is actually in the hospital and in serious injury. That's the time you said, just get out of here, go sit by the side if that's necessary. Think about the different things that you can do to take care of the stress as a supervisor. That goes a long ways. So when you look on the performance, the optimal performance, that you're right there in the middle on that stress level and the positivity thing, because some stress is good, but if you push them too hard for too long, you're going to move over into that low performance due to anxiety and being burned out. Physical, emotional components, pay attention to all of that in yourself, how you respond to people. Sometimes you have a physiological aspect of it. I do my very best work, especially my thinking work, in the morning, and I do more of my meeting work better in the afternoon. It just depends. I prefer not to have morning meetings. I prefer afternoon meetings because I find this is really good positive time for heavy duty thinking, writing, and everything else. In the afternoons, I'm really good on social engagement. But if I switch them back and forth, I'm okay, but I'm better in the afternoon. That's how I am wired. Pay attention to how you are wired, because you're not wired the same way as me or the person next to you. You're wired for your own unique methodology. Stressors can be hassles. They can be irritating. You might lose things. You might just have a bad memory to begin with. And on top of that, under stress, you forget everything. Demands created by individual differences can be genetic or personality. This depends what the roles are. Pay attention to work-family conflict. A lot of times your family stuff drifts into the work and your work stuff into your family, and they go back and forth. Try to reduce the work drifting into the person's family time. But sometimes stress is just a part of all life, and it's not all bad. Too often, work and home, they have no boundaries, especially now. We have these evil things that we carry around in our pocket all the time called cell phones. We have it over there, and the thing buzzes and goes off. We run screaming for it and everything else because, oh no, who knows what's on there? And it ends up, it could be something simple, but sometimes it's not. Work-life balance. By the way, I just want to point out, work-life balance, some of the greatest people in their professions have no work-life balance. They reach that pinnacle by focusing in on work, and they become superstars at it. And that's why they're recognized for being the stars that they are. So pay attention to that. If you have opportunity to enhance your career, focus on that. But try not to leave your personal life. Otherwise, they'll merge into one, and the only life you have could be work life. Stress. Not all bad. Certainly not all good, especially when it's on all the time. Take care.